Shalom to the sons and daughters of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and welcome back to another episode of Torah Tuesday. And tonight's topic is going to be the law concerning the poor. And I had to think about this. I was going over my list and I was looking at certain topics to bring out concerning the law. And I seen that I didn't have this particular one in it. And it seems kind of prudent to bring it out now because, today it seems like they're trying to make us even poorer than what we are. If you look at, a lot of things that is happening today, dealing with the economy, dealing with the politics, and just dealing with life overall, how inflation keep rising, and everything from your gas to your groceries to the clothes on your back to the repairs of your cars, even the car prices, everything is going up tremendously. Once again, like I said, it seems that they're trying to make us poor than what we are. So I just kind of looked in the law, just dealing with how the Most High looks at the poor and how also the Most High takes care of the poor. And he also takes care of the poor of the other nations as well. See, this is our God. This is the God of Israel. He's a fair God. He make all things and all humans, but there's a standard and there's rules and laws that the Heavenly Father have established, for all of us to abide by, and one of them is just dealing with the poor. And in the scriptures, it say that the poor will always be with you. We know that there was a lot of poor Israelites that was there when Christ walked the earth. They had a lot of the main and a lot of the poor outside of the temple when the Pharisees and the Sadducees was actually going in and everybody was attending the Sabbath. They had them out there hand peddling. So, as the scriptures say, the poor will always be with us, but there's a certain law that the Most High established that would take care of them so they won't starve to death. Okay, so let's get into the book of Leviticus. Give me 1 minute. All right. Let's get into the book of Leviticus, and we're going to hear what the law says about the poor and how they are being provided by the Most High from this law. We're going to start at Leviticus chapter 19, and I'm going to start at 9. Yeah, Leviticus 19 and verse 9. Down a little bit. And when you reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleaning of thy harvest. Now, I looked up the definition of gleaning, right? And I'm going to read the definition of gleaning, and then I'm going to read what they consider the historical event or historical definition out of the Bible concerning gleaning. So the definition they give is the act of collecting leftover crops from farmers' fields after they have commercially harvested or gathered excess fresh food from other sources like gardens, farm markets, or grocery stores. Okay. Then they got a historical event. The practice is ancient, with roots in biblical law, which instruct landowners to leave some of the harvest, edges, and any drops crop for the poor and foreigners. Okay, so that definition is pretty much true, right? Especially when it says it's a biblical law, and we are actually reading that right now. Okay, Leviticus chapter 19, and then we're going to also go into Deuteronomy as well. So Leviticus chapter 19, I'm going to go back and read verse 10. It says, and thou shalt not glean thy vineyards, neither shalt thou gather any grapes of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and stranger. I am the Lord your God. See, it put in the stranger as well, because it said the poor, and the poor they're talking about is the poor of Israel. Israelite sisters and brothers that may run into hard times, that that they will be considered as poor. But then it says the stranger as well, because we also remember the Israelites could be the stranger as too. But in this context, it's also talking about the poor of the other nations. See, our God is fair, like I said, our God is definitely fair. Let me get the book of Deuteronomy real quick. Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 24. And I'm going to start at verse 19. Now, also keep in mind that when our forefathers was in the wilderness, right? And, all of us was poor to a point, because we know that once we came out of Egypt, the Most High said, spoil the Egyptians, right? And he said to, go to the Egyptians and borrow. When he said borrow, we're not going to return it, but he was like, borrow that of the Egyptians. So we went into the wilderness with some substance, but, we still was considered poor because we didn't have a certain economy. We had a way of doing things in the wilderness that was according to the Most High structure, right? That's why he had elders. That's why he had leaders and captains. And that's why Moses was there to give the instruction to us as well. But as far as a commerce where we can go and trade and buy and things like that, well, at that point in time when we was in the wilderness, the Most High took care of us. We were considered poor. But there's one thing to keep in mind, that no other nation can, in their history, can testify that they had ate manna. Now, I say this is because, our forefathers was grumpy about eating the manna, right? But if you can look at the manna that the Most High provided for us, that was some of the purest food that we can ever put into our bodies, because it came from the heavens. That's what the Most High said. Real quick, I'm going to get that before we go to Deuteronomy. Let me read that in Exodus, because when we're talking about the poor and the Most High providing for the poor, now, if the Most High provided for us then, just keep in mind and keep the faith that he will provide us when this World War III breaks out, or we consider the ish hitting the fan. They got a lot of preppers out there. And even myself, I got, certain things that I put aside and let me a week or two of food that's at the house, because you never know what happens, especially here in California when we deal with earthquakes. Most High will provide, but you got to also have a little something for yourself, to provide for you until the Most High feels that you need his assistance. Put it that way. Couldn't even get that one out, but until he feel that you need his assistance. And then he gives us the wisdom and understanding as well, that we must, prepare for any great incident that may happen, or a catastrophe that may happen. He gives us that wisdom and that knowledge to do what? To prepare. All right. But in this case, just think about the food that the Most High has provided for our forefathers when they was in the wilderness. The purest food that ever any human actually eaten was manna. Okay. So let me see, Exodus, I think that's 16. Just reading this the other day. Let me read this to you and think about that. I'm going to start at verse 14. And when the dew that lay was gone up, Behold, upon the face of the wilderness there laid a small round thing, as small as a hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, It is manna, for they wist not it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. Can you imagine that? Just think about that. Just think about all the impurities that they put into our food now, in our food, our water that we consume on an everyday basis, right? And these foods have a different effect on our bodies. They tell you if you eat this, it causes cancer. If you eat too much, have too much sugar, it causes diabetes. And you look at right now, they got sugar in everything. Just about every product, there's a content of sugar in it. But you think about this: manna came from the heavens, and as Moses explained to him, he said, "This is the bread that the Most High has given you to eat." No other nation can testify to that. That will be, and that's not in no other nation's historical archives, but the children of Israel. So when the ish hit the fan, we can always rely upon our Father to feed us. That's how I think. That's what my faith is at, as well as, preparing for whatever happens. But it's something to think about. So I'm going to continue on. It says, I'm going to read 16 again. Actually, I'm going to read 15 again. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, It is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. Verse 16. This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tent. Verse 17. And the children of Israel did so. They gathered, some more, some less. And they did meet it with an omer. He that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eat. And Moses said, Let no man leave of it until the morning. Verse 20. Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning. And it bred worms and stank, and Moses was wroth with them. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eat. And when the sun waxed hot, it melted, or it melt. So, here we is an incident where, there was lack of food, and the Most High provided for the children of Israel this heavenly bread. So I just kind of wanted to bring that out, just kind of dealing with how, the Most High deals with the poor. So we're going to go back to the law, go back to Deuteronomy, and I'm going to pick it up at verse 24. And I'm going to start at verse 19. So the Most High told us that if you have a farm, and when you reap the harvest, do not glean all of the product, whether it be grapes, whether it be oranges, apples, nuts, whatever it is that you're growing. You're always supposed to leave a remnant for the poor. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 19. And when thou come down thy harvest in the field, and hast forgotten a leaf in the field, thou shalt not go again to fetch it. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, for the widow, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thy hands. See, there's a blessing behind following. There's always a blessing behind following the laws. And this particular law, when you do that, then the Most High said that he will bless your hand once again. Okay. Now, if he's telling you that don't glean all of the harvest, and he's saying that if when you do leave it, then the Most High will bless your hand once again. And he don't mean with like riches of gold and silver. No, he's talking about a healthy harvest each year. Seasons bring different seasons of fruits, vegetables, anytime, planting. So when one is going out of season, then another one comes in that particular season. So that's what he's saying, that he will bless thy hand. Of course, he will bless thy field as well. Because why? Because you're upholding this law that he has for the poor. Verse 20. When thou beatest thy olive tree, thou shalt not go over the broth again. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. So, when you go and start to harvest your olive trees, then the Most High said, leave a little for the poor and the stranger and the widows and the fatherless. Because we have to remember that's what Ruth had did. Her and can't think of her mother-in-law's name. That should be the main one I remember. But when they left the land of Moab, then they went back to the land of Israel. Then that's what Ruth did. Ruth went out and started to gather the gleaning for her, and as well for her mother-in-law. I want to say Naomi, but anyway, but that's what she did, right? And she did that for a while, just to support them, right, and get them on their feet, since they came from one land and came to another land. So remember, that's how she met Boaz as well. So verse 20 says, so verse 21, and when thou gatherest the grapes of thy vineyard, thou shalt not glean it afterwards. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bond man in the land of Egypt. Therefore, I command thee to do this thing. See, that is a commandment. But now, if you look at today's farmers, right, we live in a society that is so greedy and so selfish that Esau, right, he wants everything. Like you said, if it drops on the ground, Most High said, don't go back and get it. If it didn't come off of the tree when you shook it, because I guess when they deal with olives, you shake the tree. I know they do this with nuts, though. They have like a tree where they shake the tree, and then all of the almonds or whatever kind of nuts fall to the ground. But whatever stays on that tree, right, if they want to gather the nuts off the ground, but whatever stays in that tree, that's for the poor and for the needy. So Most High has always have structure and always will have structure. But once again, this greedy person, Esau, right, when you look at his farming and you look at his way of how he has established his society, everybody is for themselves. They don't want to leave nothing for nobody, and it's a shame, because they want to be the one that provides for the poor. They want to be the ones that will lend out certain things for the poor, so that they can get the prestige to say, look, I'm the one who's feeding you, and instead, when the Most High had brought this law, the Most High shows the people, the strangers, the fatherless, and the widow, that the Lord thy God of Israel have provided this law so that they can eat, them and their families. So, The law is always there for a purpose and a reason. And if one doesn't understand it at that time, you just give it time. You will understand it as, I guess, time goes on. All right. I'm gonna stay in Deuteronomy. We get Deuteronomy chapter 15, and I'm gonna read 7. But you know what? I want to go back. I want to go back to read to that 24 again, because I like that last scripture, which was verse 22, right? That last scripture, verse 22, because this is the Most High reminding us, at one point in time that we were bondmen. Okay. It says, and thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in the land of Egypt. Therefore, I command thee to do this thing. I like that. I like that. Now I go to Deuteronomy chapter 15. I'm going to start at verse 7. And that if there be among you a poor man, one of thy brethren, within any of thy gates, in thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not thou shalt not harden thy heart, nor shalt thy hand from thy poor brother. So the Most High is telling us not to harden our hearts when we see our sister or our brother of our nation that is poor, in a poor state of condition. We are to open or be generous to them at that point in time. Now, we know there's a lot of scammers, that's out right now, and we have to be discerned, on whether or not, this person deserve, this charity that you want to give them. So that comes with, once again, the wisdom that the Most High apply upon his children. But he always want to keep us in mind and keep us mindful of the poor of our nation. Okay. Verse 8. But thou shalt open thy hand widely unto him, and shall surely lend him significant for his need in that which he wanted. So the Most High said that, you feel it in your spirit, you feel that he deserved, this charity. He said, don't hesitate. Give it to your brother or give it to your sister within this nation of Israel, And then if they go out and do folly with it, guess what? That's still not on you. That's on them. At that point in time, the Most High put, that upon your spirit to give. Right. And like he said, open up that hand, give it to him freely. Don't think nothing of it. Move on. Okay. I'm going to stay in 15. I'm going to jump down to verse 10. Verse 10. Thou shalt surely give him, and thy heart shall not be grieved when thou givest unto him, because that of this thing, the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thy works. See, there it is. That's why I say, if you feel that he needs that charity, boom, give it to him. You just keep it pushing. You just keep it pushing, because the Heavenly Father said at that particular time, he's putting that on your spirit so that he can bless you even more what you even have than what you have. So the Most High is always going to cover bases, right? He's always going to put us in situations, where we're able to exercise the law, whether it's making a decision on good or evil, or making a decision on charity, or making a decision, just say in life, life situations. We're always supposed to reflect back to the law. And as they say, well, what would Jesus do in this moment? And Jesus would do what? Yahweh Shai would look back upon the law like he always did. He's always referring back to the law when he was walking this earth, with the disciples. But I'm going to read verse 10 again. It says, thou surely I'm sorry, thou shalt surely give him, and thy heart shall not be grieved when thou givest unto him, because that for this thing the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thy works, and in all that thou puttest thy hand unto. See, those things we have to keep in mind when we give in charity to our sisters and brothers. Saying that, you know what, I ain't tripping. That's gonna come back 20-fold, right? Whenever it does. When you do give, don't expect for it to happen the next day that you get your blessing. No, it don't work that way. The Most High, he's long suffering. So when you need it, it'll be there for you. And when you actually exercise this charity, right, and lend to the poor and the needy of our nation, then guess what? That blessing is sitting there waiting upon you. Okay. Verse 11. For the poor shall never cease out of the land. Now, just keep that in mind. It says, for the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore, I command thee, saying, thou shalt open thy hand widely unto thy brother, to thy poor, and to thy needy in thy land. See, the Most High already told it, and it's true. There was poor before Christ walked this earth. There was poor when Christ walked this earth. They're still poor now that Christ has left this earth. So, like you said, it's the poor will always be with you. But understand this as well. It's just that exercising that charity helps bring forth more of your blessings, whatever it may be. Whatever it may be, okay? So we have to keep that in mind when we're dealing with the poor of our nation, though. And we have to and now we have a law that we can refer back to find out whether how to deal with it, how to judge it. When I say judge it, mean judging the situation when you are giving your charity. But we also got to remember that it's a law that the Most High has provided. It says, as a brother Eyebrow used to always say, well, much is given, much is required. And he's always, refer that to me and to other brothers. And it's a cold saying, because that makes you feel a little guilty when you do have, and the Most High have blessed you, right? And it also you have to keep in mind that, for you to give to our nation and to our people. So it's a little guilt that falls a little bit behind. That's how I kind of think of it. But it's still there that I'm charitable to understand this law right here and to give to whoever is needed, in that particular moment. Let's go to the book of Matthew real quick. Let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 10. Let me see if this is what I want. And I'm going to read verse 16. But just keep that in mind, Israel, that there is a law of charity. There is a law that's dealing with the poor, and the Most High has set that law so that they will be taken care of until his coming. Okay. Matthew chapter 10 and verse 16. Okay. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves, because that's the time we're living in right now. We want to be charitable, but we know there's so many scams out there. And, and the thing is that even in these church houses, they are being scammed, which they're going to pay for it. So the Most High says, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves, but ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So now we're supposed to be wise, and a lot of us, who grew up in the cities, who know the little scams, who know, the little hustle that they put on, we're aware of that. That's what the Most High said, you wise as serpents, but he said, be harmless as doves as well. because we can't have our heart hardened to our people because of their hustle. You know, when you feel it deemed in your spirit to give, then give. You know, that's why the Most High said, you know, it is a blessing to give alms, because when our alms that we give to our nation, you know, whatever camp you in, or a particular brother that you follow on YouTube or social media, you know, and they're asking for arms, at least you know where their arms are going. You know, they're going to support that brother and that movement. Now, what that brother does with it, once you give it to him, then that's between that brother and the Most High, you know, and hopefully he's doing righteous with it. So keep that in mind, Israel, and come back, support Torah Tuesday. I know I've been away a little bit, but I just been kind of putting certain things together dealing with the law. But just keep in mind, in these last days and times we're living in, the law will pull us through. So with that, I say shalom.